Hey, it's Robin LaRose from Classic Rock 101, and in studio today, special guests, Aaron Chapman. He's a writer, he's a musician, he's a Vancouver historian, contributor to the Vancouver Courier, who has always had a special interest in Vancouver entertainment history. His latest book, Liquor, Lust, and the Law. It's about the legendary and infamous Penthouse Nightclub that has withstood everything from vice squads, a devastating murder, a devastating fire, and over 60 plus years of partying in Vancouver. These stories and photographs are all collected for the first time in this book about the Penthouse, which began thanks to the Filippone family, who started on Seymour Street in downtown Vancouver in the, I believe, the delivery business, then the cab business, then buying a lot next door, building a building which eventually turned into the Penthouse Nightclub. And that legacy continues to this day with current manager Danny Filippone. Welcome.
Thank you very much for having us.
Pleasure to meet you and a pleasure to have you again, Aaron.
Good to be here.
You've done your homework, I can tell.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, you know, sitting down and reading this book, and then you just kind of flip from page to page to page, and you just go, wow. You know, I've been in the city for a long time, and I've been into the entertainment history as well. Not just here, but, you know, whoever comes and plays and I get to talk to. But when you see this book, it's just incredible how it's been compiled, and from, you know, your family coming in from Italy to current day. It's absolutely astounding. So congratulations on the book.
Thank you very much, yeah.
And I was just wondering right out of the gate, how did you two meet and how did this book come together?
Well, I'll tell you, the book had been an idea of mine and my father's for many years. Mm-hmm. About 10 years ago, my wife and I were doing some routine cleaning in the house that we own next door to the Penthouse, 1033 Seymour. And we had pushed back an old photocopy machine, one of those old clunkers that you used to have back in the days. And we pushed it back, and there it was. It was 4 screws in the wall. And I immediately called my father, and I said to my dad, "Dad, what's behind the photocopy in the hole?" And he said, "I don't know, but whatever's behind there, we're going to split 50-50." Mark my words. Well, behind there, when I reached in, were these photographs that are now being featured in Liquor, Lust, and the Law. And the beautiful thing that they had been lost in time for literally 25 to 30 years. These photos were non-existent. They had been hidden away, presumed by my Uncle Joe.
Right.
And it was Aaron who was walking by the Penthouse many years ago and happened to notice one of our signs saying established in 1947, and he put 2 and 2 together and realized we were about to celebrate our 60th anniversary.
That's about right, yeah. I was walking down Seymour Street and I saw that sign and I thought, it's 2006 now, it's the end of 2006, we're coming up on a big anniversary for the Penthouse, and it seemed like you know, a new sort of appraisal of the Penthouse was in order. And my father had been a lawyer for the Filippone family, I discovered. He hadn't told me that.
Wow.
And in the 1960s on some real estate transaction stuff. Yeah. So when I asked him about the Penthouse, "Dad, had you ever been to the Penthouse?" And he was like, you know, yeah, a couple times I'd been there. Yeah, why do you want to know? Who are you talking to? But that certainly made an easy introduction to the family, and in speaking to Danny's father, the founder, one of the founders of the Penthouse, to make him feel at ease. You know, I think in the beginning to what we were talking. So, what began as a article in the Courier later that year in 2007 that I wrote, then probably set itself up for a book to happen later, I guess.
Yeah, so cool, so cool. You get this asked probably a billion times. What's it like growing up in the Filippone family?
Well, it's a question, since the release of the book, I've been getting asked a lot more. But imagine going to school. I mean, here I was in elementary school, not really knowing exactly what my family did. I knew that my dad was going to work at some place called the Penthouse. I knew that he went to work at 11 o'clock at night, you know, when obviously most dads were home. Yeah. But what struck me was sort of odd some of the times is when the bell would go and 3 o'clock and all the kids would go running outside, and I was always asked to stay behind. And it wasn't usually because I was in trouble, but more or less because they wanted to ask me questions about the club. They wanted to know if they can get complimentary VIP passes. Wow. And as I went on, even through high school, you know, then at that time I knew what was going on, and it was wonderful growing up at Filippone. Just always been, you know, my father always taught, you know, when just because you have a last name, you know, you got to earn the respect. It just doesn't come, and I grew up that way, learning. You know, you have to earn it from everyone. Yeah,
you had a lot of jobs when you were in high school, teenager.
Oh, I bounced around. I was working at Kelly's Stereo Mart, slinging records. I was working at the racetrack, Exhibition Park. I was I was working as a waiter at a fish and chip place, all this stuff. And then tragically, when my Uncle Joe was killed, my dad literally sat me down in his office and says, I got to talk to you. And it was like, either you're in or you're out. And talk about, being put on the spot.
Yeah.
And I'd already made up my mind, and I told him I'm in.
Wow.
And the rest is history.
The rest is history. So your first gig there was, you're the first male waiter there.
I was the first male waiter. And
what the heck was that like?
My dad said, just go grab a tray. And I said, what do I do? He says, oh, it's easy, just go grab a tray. And I went up, my first order, my drink order, I'll never forget it.
Oh, yeah.
I went, a customer asked me for a double, triple, sour, neat twist with a lime fling. I started crying, went back to the bar, had no idea what I was doing, right? And it wasn't up until Expo where my dad started teaching me some of the managerial skills.
Right. You must have been pretty overwhelmed with the information that you had to compile for this book. After you start the project and you start the research and you go, oh my God,
it was really incredible. I had the good occasion to talk to Danny's father, Ross, before he passed away, and did some lengthy interviews with him. But I also spoke to some old dancers that worked at the club, old patrons, retired police constables from the Vancouver Police Department who used to go by the Penthouse or in the Penthouse on their beat.
Yeah.
I went a step further and filed a freedom of information request with the Vancouver Police Department to access some of the old documents that they had kept on file all these years pertaining to some of the events in the 1970s that pertain to the Penthouse.
Yeah.
Old musicians, and almost everything sort of would spring to another person that I know somebody you should talk to and stuff like this. So they had the photos were just one thing, but to talk to so many people to build that story was
and you don't mention calling me at 3:00 in the morning with a question or two.
Oh, really?
This is true as well.
For about 1 year, yeah.
Well, thinking that you were still up and maybe at the club. Or
that's what I thought. Yeah.
The list of people who have gone through this place is just astounding. From the Duke Ellingtons to the Frank Sinatras to the Billie Holidays, Sammy Davis, Gary Cooper's. Incredible.
It is incredible. To think, how many times you've driven past the Penthouse in your car, whether you've been in, thought about going in, or just looking up at that strange building on the corner of Seymour and Nelson. To think back, it wasn't that long ago, 60 years ago, 50 years ago. This was the place where the stars, my dad used to call it the rendezvous of stars. This is where the stars would come in, whether it was for a dinner, a quick drink, or just to pull out their instrument and start jamming with the band.
Yeah. People, is it true? People came by your place for dinner, like the Duke Ellingtons, and for you, were you sitting at the table?
I was sitting at the table when these stars would come by, and
just a normal occurrence for you.
Yeah,
right?
I mean, Aaron tells a funny story in the book. When I was maybe I was in grade 6. I was elementary school. I was trying to go to bed. And I remember I had a normal bedroom like everyone had, except there was a roulette wheel in my bedroom. My dad would often have these casinos, these house-held casinos. The thing would be click, 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 click. Waiting for the last hand to be played, right?
Everybody's gone through there, like we just mentioned, in high school, PTA teachers, politicians, judges, that kind of thing. The most surprising incident or person that you saw come into the club. Can you think of any?
Well, I mean, stars that, I can relate to. And it doesn't even have to be big stars. I mean, just recently, Halle Berry was just there. And Chris Pine from the new Star Trek was there. And Will Smith popped in. But I remember one day, just a classic, John Ratzenberger from Cheers.
Cheers, yeah.
The mailman. Now, I know he's not the biggest star in the world, but here a guy walks down the stairs. I'm saying, I recognize him right away. And I said, can I get you a table? I'm just looking around and seeing, and all of a sudden they announced it. Please welcome to the stage the lovely Coco Fontaine. Yeah, might just have that beer. He went into his character, and I just couldn't stop laughing. So we've had so many wonderful stars over the past, but we do really leave them alone when they're in there. I think that's one of the appeals why the stars do like coming to the Penthouse.
Yeah,
because they really are left alone.
Yeah, exactly. And initially in the history, I was totally unaware of this, but it's really cool that it's discovered and articulated in the book that when the lot was bought, I think it was $1,400, and the construction began on the building. It was like it turned into kind of like a social house, right? A gymnasium or
the Filippone family, before it was running as a bar, essentially back in the day there wasn't sort of nightclubs in the Vancouver, the sense that we would see them now, or what you would find on Granville Street today.
Exactly,
was far removed from what life was like in what the small port town of Vancouver was. There wasn't liquor licenses even really to speak of. So where it was legal to drink in a private residence. So a lot of the quote-unquote clubs, but sort of skirted things by forming the athletic club, or the Eagle Time Athletic Club in this case. There was the Pacific Athletic Club. There was rarely anybody, there was no weight room equipment or anything like that down there. But it was a chance for people to go to a private residence and have drinks with their friends and whatnot. And you'd sign in as a member to the club and whatnot. And Eagle Time Athletic Club, founded with the Filippones, began in that way, and you'd come in and make a donation to the club, and that would be in turn used for sports equipment for the kids, because they were sponsoring maybe 500 to 800 kids at any given time in local sports, in baseball and soccer and football and whatnot. And a lot of Vancouverites of that period would have gone through that club. It was almost like a community center.
And it wasn't liquor that they were buying when they walked in. They were buying things called sets, and these sets would contain a thing of 7-Up or Pepsi and ice, and you were paying $3 for this set because people brought in their own liquor in bags. And of course that the old under the bottle, under the table service. Well, that even to this day we still have a couple of those tables that we use on our tours that we have at the Penthouse, and people are always amazed on how the bottle just fits perfectly under the table in the secret compartment. Wonderful stuff.
I heard it was originally designed for women's purses.
Yes, that was the excuse.
It's amazing when you think of how many obstacles you guys had to overcome, liquor laws particularly, and you go with this club for 20 years without a liquor license? Outstanding. Unbelievable.
I mean, even to think to go on to today, I mean, back before we got our liquor license in '68, Joe was running the place, as Aaron was saying, as his own little party palace. But he had so many people come there. Eventually, he had to apply for a liquor license, and we were one of the first to be granted one.
Right.
But it wasn't easy keeping the liquor license. The police did countless dry raids on the family, and
I don't think many Vancouverites would be able to imagine what it would be like to go out pre-1968 in Vancouver, where you'd be sitting with some friends and some uniformed police officers would come in shining their flashlights in your faces, wondering if you had any alcohol. And give you a $75 fine that you had to pay on the spot. Which was a fair bit of money. It's a little bit of money right now, but it's been a lot back then for people. So eventually, even the police department and the city fathers at the time sort of became a situation enough that they were wanting to get liquor license in to be reasonable and be civilized at that point. But it's amazing that it took that long. Not even the Commodore Ballroom had a liquor license until 1968.
Incredible. Absolutely incredible. And to this day, how incredible it is to try and get a liquor license and how much you have to pay for one. It's amazing, isn't it?
That's right.
The year that you go from, times change. It's incredible how people's tastes change. The advent of television, Ed Sullivan, people stay at home. How do you get them out again? That all changed. It shifted, right, for entertainment with, the Sammy Davises, the Franks, burlesque, pasties, and then full-blown strippers, as it were.
I mean, you're right. It was my dad used to tell me that was one of they had to get people out of their homes. They were all stuck glued in front of their TV sets, as people are now with their cell phones. But imagine being in front of the TV sets. So when they brought burlesque in from Las Vegas, that was something that drew them out of the home. And then, of course, as you said, it turned into full-blown stripper entertainment. Going back to the early 80s in downtown Vancouver. At one point, there was close to 55 bars in the downtown area that had strippers. I mean, if you were a hotel and had a pole, you were good to go. And now it's gone so full circle for various reasons. Through the internet and low cost development housing, government buying up buildings, and now here we are in the year 2013, and there's only 3 strip bars left in the downtown core.
It's pretty amazing.
It is crazy.
Absolutely. The
right?
Champagne Charlies and the Austins, come and gone, and Penthouse is still here.
Still there.
It's a testament to you guys and surviving this. So many freaky, funny, cool stories in this book. Absolutely. There's one I was reading about Don Cherry, who came in one night and he started heckling the Vancouver police departments. And who came over and told him to,
Grant McDonald, who was a beat cop in the VPD in the 60s, came in one night. It was typical for him as a West End cop to come in and visit the Penthouse just to see what was going on and whatnot. And it was some night when I guess the Bruins were in town, and Don Cherry was up front in the front row, and I guess he'd had a few drinks, And he started, like you say, he started beacon off, hey, look at the monkeys back there and stuff like that. Yeah. And Grant said, a little bit of it was sort of funny, and he knew who he was and whatnot, but it gets to a point where it's a little too much, and it was getting well past that point, Grant says. And Grant, at the age of 75 today, is still a rather imposing guy. I, as a retired gentleman here in Vancouver, I wouldn't want to cross him. But so he went over and put a firm hand on his shoulder and said, Don, you can go to jail in this town. And that shut him up. And like Grant says, he had more to lose than he did. So.
There's a really cool photograph of some streakers from the Penthouse that showed up at a Canucks game against the Islanders. What's the story behind that?
Well, I mean, first of all, the story is true, and now the photo actually verifies that. For many years, it was Vancouver folklore whether this actually really happened at the Canucks game. Only the players and the people who were actually at the game were privy to see what went on, because no one. I think they cut it off the TV and the radio, but I was 11, 12 years old, being driven out to a Canuck game by my uncle, in the back seat of one of these big Cadillacs, and there was these 3 women next to me, all wearing fur coats, which didn't mean anything to me at the time, other than that they were nice coats. Yeah. Here I am watching the game, the Canucks. I'm a kid and all excited. After the first period, these 3 girls jump up and they race down the stairs towards the gate, where my Uncle Joe, I didn't know this, but he had pieced off the door guy who opened up the gate. These 3 girls jumped on the ice, dropped their gear, and off they went, running across the ice. And somebody from the, I think it was from the Vancouver Sun, took a photo of this now famous photograph, and which is in the book. And I remember I was driving home not more than 2 years ago when the Canucks were in the playoff run, and they had all the callers call in and ask for their top 10 favorite Canuck moments. It was number 4. It didn't say much for the team, right? So, but that was some funny times.
No kidding. The coolest thing you ever saw in this club?
Well, we've had so many great even bands.
You were mentioning Zeppelin.
Zeppelin's popped in there, Fleetwood Mac. As I was saying to you earlier, we have these secret bands that come in, like Conline Crush. And Avril Lavigne was just in and shot a private video that she didn't want anyone to see. Tons of upcoming bands, too. We were a part of the New Music West Festival. But there was one instance upstairs, I have to tell you, and I don't know if this was in the book, but we were open upstairs, and a guy came into the club one day, and he's a big rugged character, and he just started taking apart the furniture. That we have these couches on the back wall, and the bartender went, "Can I help you?" As it turned out, this guy had just served 4 years in the can for serving time, and prior to him going into jail, he had stashed all his money, bags of loot, behind the Penthouse furniture, and he ripped out the couch and put his hand. He goes, "I knew that there's one place that wasn't going to renovate in the 4 years." Off he went. He threw his hundreds around, and off he went. Never saw the guy again. I mean, that type of stuff that doesn't go on these days, right?
Yeah, no kidding. No kidding. You say in the book that the golden age of the Penthouse would be, 1969 and 1975? Would that correct?
In many ways, yeah. In that period of certainly of Danny's father and his uncles owning it.
Yeah. Exactly. It's incredible to be able to overcome so many challenges, as we mentioned before: television lawsuits, the Penthouse 6 trial, competition, to this very day, and surviving still. Not to mention this devastating fire that happened, and it's detailed in the book. You were in North or West Van that you got the call? Or
it was 3:21 in the morning. I was sleeping, and the phone rang, and my manager just said one word. He said the word "fire," and I'm startled. And I said, "How bad?" He says, "Get your butt down here." I remember driving over the Second Narrows Bridge, and it was a clear, crystal, beautiful morning, and all I could see was smoke billowing from I knew where the Penthouse was standing. And it was a very hard drive down there, just to get down there. To my happiness, when I got down there, amongst all the firemen and police tape, I noticed that the building was still standing. I had raced behind, and at that point, the fire chief was there, and he was doing his job. And Aaron had a chance to chat with the fire chief.
Yeah, I interviewed the battalion chief, Randy Hugh Benton, who's a longtime fire department veteran, and he talked about how they had fought the fire and how some of the techniques they were using now actually would have not been around a few years ago, saved the building. But he said, "Aaron, there actually is one more thing that probably helped it that night, which was when he was just joined the fire department, he was dating one of the dancers at the Penthouse, and got invited backstage a few times. So he knew where the dressing rooms were in exactly the back of the building. So when they raced in and kicked in the door in the back with the fire hoses and axes, he knew, guys, it's not this way, it's this way. So
that's true. I mean, that's you can't make up stuff like that. You know? But no, I mean, after the fire, we did have to make a decision. I mean, business was going well for the Penthouse at the time. Yeah. We had fought all the different bars opening and closing. We had reasserted ourselves with being not just an exotic bar, like we do tons of other things like jazz shows and gay and pride festivals and rock shows, and plus, of course, all our amateur concerts that we do. And here we were left with a building that needed to be fully repaired. Yeah. So the family decided that we were going to do it, and we gave it a complete makeover. Keeping the heritage style part of it. Mm-hmm. And once we got it reopened, I knew that we had made the right decision because people like yourself and all the wonderful calls that we had, and of course now the book finally got to be made from that. So since then, it's been wonderful.
You've been offered, like, I'm sure, tons of money for this property, right, over the years, and you've always said no.
I have, and it's sometimes you give your head a shake and say, what am I doing? But I know my dad was very adamant. I mean, it is a family business. It's run by the same Filippone family for the past 65, 70 years. Yeah. It employs a lot of people downtown. It was inducted to the BC Entertainment Hall of Fame. Yeah. I mean, this is not just a building. It's our family. It's what we stood for. And I enjoy being there. I enjoy working there. And things like this, whether it's a book or any sort, we're being offered to do a movie now on Liquor, Lust, and the Law. And
really?
I mean, that's crazy. I mean, we didn't know the book was going to take off as well as it has. Right now, it's sitting on the BC bestsellers chart. It has for the past 2 months. Now we've got people coming to us with movie offers, and I'm thinking, this is really happening, right? So it's wonderful, right?
Yeah,
so it's really
cool. Fantastic. I really hope this movie thing picks up and takes off as well.
Thanks.
Absolutely, absolutely. It's Liquor, Lust, and the Law. It's the story of Vancouver's Penthouse Nightclub. Aaron Chapman, who's written the book, thanks for being with us.
Thanks, Rob.
And
great to be here.
Danny Filippone, absolute pleasure to meet you.
Oh, thank you very much. And I have to say to Aaron, and I said it to you before, when I asked you to do this book, we weren't rolling the dice with you because I knew that you were going to do a great job, and you did an absolute bang-up job. So I congratulate you once again.
Well, it was great because the day I was offered to write the book, it was about me like sort of that week prior that my girlfriend had split up with me. So I thought the idea of spending my next year in the Penthouse writing a book sounds like a great idea right now.
Classic.
Classic. Yeah. Good for you. Congratulations
Thank you
again.
very much.
Thanks, Robin.
Thanks for being here, guys.
Take care.
Cheers.